We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
Following a tiring week, I find myself on the couch seeking a movie on pay TV when my wife, with whom I've shared a home for 7 years, descends the stairs looking radiant in an unfamiliar dress, stockings, high heels, and a new hairstyle. "Where are you going, Jenny?" I ask. "A bachelorette party?" she replies. "But wasn't last week your monthly bachelorette party?" I question. "Yes, but we wanted to celebrate Tammy's birthday at a special place and couldn't secure a reservation last week. I should be back late. My Uber is already here." Her departure left me with an uneasy feeling. Tammy was married to my best friend, Matt, and she was the one who introduced me to Jenny. I had known Tammy and Matt all my life. Tammy's mother ran a small daycare and took care of Matt and me while our mothers were at work. I ended up visiting our favorite spot for a beer and burger. The venue was crowded, making it challenging to find a spot at the bar when someone called my name. Turning around, I saw Matt and Tammy seated at a table, prompting a wave of emotions. Joining them, I learned that they had been estranged for months due to an incident where Tammy was caught kissing another man at work. Matt had expelled her from their home, causing her to reside with her mother briefly. The domestic atmosphere remained frosty, likely still is. One of the conditions for Tammy's return was absolute honesty. Any deviations would lead to divorce. Asking about her birthday, Jack seemed puzzled, but Matt and I shared birthdays in July. Her expression changed abruptly, and she admitted something. Matt grabbed her arm and demanded explanation or departure. However, he didn't want me to witness his anger. Tammy stiffened under his scrutiny, and it appeared he was gripping her hand tightly enough to cause pain. She encountered a man last week during our friends' outing. They seemed fond of each other. Upon returning home, she mentioned that he proposed a date for tonight, which we all advised against, yet I sensed she was seriously considering it. Throughout the week, she didn't revisit the subject. Matt commented, "You should have informed me, Tammy, even if you were pondering it. You should have told me about potential troubles." However, she explained that it would merely be a one-time event. Indeed, once is permissible, gather your belongings and relocate with your mother once more. It's crucial we reevaluate our marriage commitments, Matt declared. "If there's anything I can do to assist you, Jack, let me know." He departed, leaving Tammy stunned and tearful. Curses, curses, curses. After overcoming my minor blunder, I find myself in the same predicament from 3 months ago. Because your wife, who used to be your friend, glanced at another man, is the cause of all this. Matt correctly stated that you should have intervened earlier. I saw that look too, Matt. If it hadn't been that man, it would have been someone else, and she would have concealed her plans. Perhaps there could have been another person in the future, but then she wouldn't have become my wife. After Tammy left for Matt's car, I followed suit. Matt and I were partners in a construction firm. I informed him that I might require a few days off and a divorce attorney. He stated he had previously utilized his services when he discovered Tammy with another man kissing her. He was going to call that person on Monday anyway and provided me with his contact information. As I watched them drive away, I felt sympathy for Tammy. Her marriage was once again at risk, but this time due to the actions of a friend. I stopped at a large hardware store, returned home, and changed the door locks. I packed all of Jenny's belongings into plastic bags. In my drawers, I discovered an assortment of new undergarments, leading me to ponder about her choice beneath her attire. Upon discarding her belongings on the roadside, I messaged Jenny. As I opted for a beer, I encountered Tammy and Matt at the bar. Similar to mine, Tammy's birthday is in July. She also shared details about the man you recently met. Furious that she didn't take any action, Matt kicked her out once more. I rekeyed all locks. Your belongings are on the lawn outside our house. It's advisable for you to relocate to your mother's and seek legal assistance. Assuming she had switched off her phone, I did not wait for a response. The sleeping pills eventually helped me drift off to sleep until nearly noon the following day when Jenny began pounding on the front door. "Let me in," she demanded. "Cease acting like a child." A window above our bedroom's front door provides access. I opened it and tossed her the keys. I refused to open the door. "Here's your keys. Clear out of my yard and head to either your mom or lover. It doesn't matter to me. Perhaps you and Tammy should cohabit." Did I upset little Jack? This is our house, so open the door already. Actually, this is my parents' home. They allowed us to move in when they chose to downsize. It remains in their name. Where are your stockings, Jenny? Come on, I need to use the bathroom. Let me in. Go hide behind that bush. I can't wait to check if you're still wearing your panties. Get lost, Jack. Yet she glanced at the bush and hid herself behind it. She wasn't donning any stockings. After relieving herself, she started arguing again. I despise you, Jack. I merely desired some fun, but you ruined it. Well, we concur on one thing. What is that? She inquired. That we detest each other, Jenny, and you had your fun, violated your marriage vows, and behaved like a vulgar harlot. Get off my lawn before I or a neighbor contacts the police. Finally, Jenny ceased her squabbling. I observed as she battled to place her bags into her Honda. She shattered one of her heels and hurled it at me. Jenny's throwing skills are poor, and she rarely hits her target. Tammy phoned, enraged by my deceit. Shortly after, Matt contacted me to inquire about the outcome. Jenny arrived home at noon. Earlier today, I altered all the locks and discarded her belongings on the lawn in front of the house. She woke up the neighbors with her persistent knocking, but I refused her entry. I am relieved my parents didn't put the house in my name. Jenny claimed she just wanted to have a good time. I hope she enjoyed herself. Tammy contacted me this morning. She's upset that I've made her into Jenny. What are your plans for Tammy, Jack? I'm at a loss. This morning I scolded her about the importance of complete honesty, which extends beyond answering questions truthfully and also involves disclosing relevant information, particularly when it comes to infidelity. Jenny repeatedly phoned me angrily, insisting I was being unfair. After the third call, I blocked her number. Subsequently, her mother contacted me with a similar complaint, urging me to set aside my masculinity and allow Jenny to return home. I informed her that Jenny was already home and this would be our final civil conversation. I also blocked her number. Matt brought over some beer and we turned on the game. The match was in progress when my mother called. Upon inquiry, it transpired that Jenny's mother had contacted hers. Son, stop behaving childishly and let your wife return home. Mother, precisely what did she tell you to make me appear so childish? She claimed that Jenny had a date the previous night, and upon returning home, you apparently changed the locks or something similar. Yes, she went on a date with a man she met last week, dressed up, and returned at midday. You believe I'm acting childish due to this? Yes, she enjoyed herself and returned home to you. Son, it seems I have awoken in an alternate reality. I need to talk to Dad. I want to check if he understands fun in the same way you do, Jack. There's no need for that, Jack. Mom, hand over the phone or I'll call him directly. Mom hung up and I dialed Dad on speed dial. He answered with a hello, but there was arguing in the background. I could make out my mother shouting, "Pete, hang up the phone, damned it." It seemed like they were quarreling on the phone. Eventually, I heard Dad threaten Mom for the first time in their 40-year marriage, saying if she didn't calm down, he would hit her. She pleaded, "Pete, hang up. You don't want to witness what this will lead to." Hey, Jack, it sounds like you're facing a big problem. I've been married to this woman for nearly 40 years and have never had to threaten her before. Can you tell me what's happening? I informed him that Jenny went on a date last night with a man she met just a week ago, dressed up in all her best outfits and returned home at noon without her underwear or stockings. I swapped the locks, preventing her entry into the house, and placed all her belongings on the lawn. My mother and Jenny, along with her mother, claim I am behaving immaturely. I question if my sanity is slipping away, seeking your perspective. I'll call you later. Matt overheard much of our conversation and said, I never gave you that advice. However, my mom reacted similarly when I discovered a man kissing Tammy. Perhaps it's some sort of female bond they share, like a code to protect each other. After a few hours, Matt left for beer and pizza, but later my father arrived with a suitcase. It appears our discussion with my mother didn't go smoothly. He sat despondently on the couch. Matt returned with the pizza and beer, and we sat down to eat. Jack, I don't believe it could have been any worse. She started by saying I was acting childish, then discussed how women require moments of fun sometimes. As soon as she said that, she recognized her mistake. How many times had I asked her for this? 4 instances did she attempt to mention, but Only once made it through before the kitchen table shattered beneath my impact. This startled her, prompting me to approach her. For the second time in 4 decades, I felt the urge to strike your mother. After 4 repetitions, she began discussing how these occurrences fortified our union. Your mother declined to disclose the timing or the party involved. She crumpled to the floor and wept. I gathered my belongings. She pleaded for me not to abandon her. I demanded that she document each instance, every person, every location, and all events in our life that led her to be unfaithful. She claimed it would aggravate matters further. I urged her to seek legal advice. 40 years of my life, Jack, I've been a cuckold, and I was oblivious. Is it worse, Dad, to conceal or to have your spouse reveal all? I understand, Jack. I am well acquainted with Jenny's father, Tony. We were companions in the Knights of Columbus for many years. I shall reach out to him, gather his thoughts. In his younger days, he was a tough individual and currently led one of the local unions. From my father's discussion, it appeared Jenny returned home distressed, stating we'd had a minor disagreement and I had responded excessively. My father clarified the situation to Tony, who seemed displeased. He also informed Tony about the conversation with my mother, emphasizing her perspective that I had overreacted. Furthermore, he disclosed my mother's infidelity to Tony. Tony stated he would get back to my father later. An hour passed, and Tony called again, requesting a conference call. Let me begin by expressing my apologies for Jenny's infidelity towards you. I had always hoped to raise her with better values, but evidently the influence of my unfaithful spouse was too strong. Regardless, I received the same response. In the span of 20 years, there were 4 instances of infidelity, and it strengthened our marriage. Frankly, I find that hard to believe. It seems more like something a women's magazine such as Cosmopolitan might fabricate. 2 women who had 4 affairs in 20 years. I cannot help but doubt that is a merely coincidence. Among the perks of my job is having a union-provided legal team featuring one of the top divorce attorneys in the state. Known for her tenacity, I'd rather not be on the opposing side. She can visit tomorrow at noon if it's convenient. I questioned, "Isn't the top divorce attorney in the state visiting our house on Sunday?" "Yes, that's correct. Are you comfortable with this arrangement?" My father and I both agreed. Yes, simultaneously. Matt remained quiet. I inquired whether he wished to attend. "I'm unsure, Jack. You should know that I have been fond of Tammy since we were in diapers at her mother's daycare. I plan to speak with her now. If I don't get the answers I seek, I will return tomorrow." At 11:55 a.m. on Sunday, a truck arrived and delivered 2 large boxes of Dunkin' Donuts coffee and 2 boxes filled with donuts and pastries. Immediately after the delivery, the lawyers arrived. There were 3 female attorneys, each carrying substantial briefcases. Tony parked just behind them, prompting Matt to follow suit. I pulled him aside and inquired about the situation. I visited Jenny's residence but found it vacant. Subsequently, I went to the bar where I last saw her. There she was with the same man who had his arms around her waist, making inappropriate advances. Our eyes met before I drove off. "I apologize, Matt. My plans for a family with you seemed promising, but they were put on hold when I encountered Jenny lately." "What's going on in this world? It was Jenny who insisted we should have children, yet I continually delayed the plan. The events involving you and Tammy unsettled me. At the meeting, the shark lawyer identified herself as Barbara and presented her associates. She requested Tony to recap the situation, although he had already discussed it extensively the previous night. My daughter, Jenny, is wedded to Jack. This is his father, Pete, and Jack's closest friend, Matt. On a Friday evening, Jenny departed home dressed up, claiming she was going out with Matt's wife to celebrate her birthday. Regrettably, Jack departed for a social drink but encountered Matt with his spouse. His spouse confessed that Jenny had joined them for an outing. Upon her return home on Saturday afternoon, Jack had replaced the locks and discarded all her belongings. When contacted by my wife Jane, Jack was advised he was behaving immaturely, as his wife had merely enjoyed some entertainment and should reconcile with her. Notably, her undergarments were absent. Jack's mother echoed this advice. Inquiring if he concurred, Jack consulted his father, Pete. His wife asserted it was insignificant, stating women occasionally require amusement. Eventually, she acknowledged having multiple affairs over the past 2 decades, which had allegedly bolstered their relationship. Pete sought my opinion on whether women warrant occasional enjoyment. Our conversation with my wife turned out to be rather uncomfortable. In conclusion, she conceded to having 4 extramarital relationships spanning over 2 decades, claiming they fortified our union. I don't subscribe to the notion of accidents. Neither of the women disclosed the timing, reasons, or identities of their partners. Turning to Matt, she inquired about him. 3 months prior, I discovered my wife Tammy locking lips with a man at a bar. We engaged in a heated argument, resulting in her eviction and temporary residence with her mother. Legal proceedings for divorce were initiated. However, we reconciled under the condition that she would never deceive me again. Tammy maintained friendships with Jenny and knew about the date. I reminded Tammy that withholding information equated to dishonesty and sent her back to her mother's. Last night, I visited her but found her absent. Instead, I encountered her at the same bar with the same man who was fondling her breasts. As for you, Matt, you'll be last. I'll start with Jack because his case is the last one. My 2 assistants will handle Pete and Tony. In a trial setting, I'll stand alongside you in the courtroom, with all of us present. Allow me to clarify my thoughts. The notion that women sometimes seek momentary amusement is not uncommon in popular literature for women. Occasionally, a woman may indulge once, then discover it's not to her liking, and never does it again. She might or might not confess this to her spouse. Some women enjoy it, but it's usually more about a quick thrill than true affection. More often than not, they get found out, and the relationship usually ends in divorce. Rarely do women's magazines discuss broken families. The internet, too, is filled with misinformation, including an influential article suggesting to ask for a divorce 4 times over 20 years as a means to strengthen your marriage. In our state, fault is not necessary for divorce, so assets amassed during the marriage are typically split equally. If one spouse earns less, alimony may be paid. Usually, judges mandate counseling, which I assume will apply in these cases. Due to the time elapsed in Tony and Pete's case, and because Jack's incident took place on Friday, our day was spent with lawyers completing paperwork. They were exceptionally swift, wrapping everything up by dinner. Tony arranged sandwiches for all. The primary focus of our conversation revolved around when we wished the documents to be delivered to our wives. I expressed a desire for Jennifer to receive hers as soon as practicable. The other men concurred. Barbara mentioned her intention to utilize some services, but 4 was too many. She believed she could arrange Jenny's arrival by Tuesday. The rest of us had to wait until Wednesday or Thursday. During dinner, she cautioned us against resorting to violence or retaliation. We were instructed to terminate all shared credit cards immediately, though our spouses were allowed continued access to the funds. On Monday morning, each of us was required to establish individual bank accounts and transfer half of the funds from our joint accounts into these new ones. Tony accompanied the lawyers. The trio remained behind on the couch, popping open beers. A sense of disorientation washed over me as Barbara bombarded us with questions, causing discomfort for all involved. The business we had diligently constructed alongside Matt would now be divided between Jenny and Tammy, a situation that left me irked. Closing or selling the business was a preferred alternative I considered. On Monday, Barbara phoned, stating Jenny would receive legal papers at 8:30 the following day at work, warning of potential repercussions. Given her surprising intent to dissolve our relationship, dramatic events seemed imminent. If matters escalated, she threatened to file a restraining order against Jenny. On Tuesday, Matt and I were at work. As of yet, I hadn't unlocked the phones belonging to Jenny and her mother. At 8:35, an unfamiliar number called me. Initially thought it was Jenny on the call, but couldn't disregard it. Turned out it was, indeed, Jenny. Poor fellow, your male ego is so bruised that you want to divorce me. Not happening, you oaf. I ended the call. About 20 minutes later, she appeared at our workplace. Matt kept her at bay while I phoned Barbara and activated FaceTime, allowing her to witness Jenny's outburst. She was shouting threats, claiming her father would hire the top divorce lawyer in the state, making me grovel for her forgiveness. Barbara advised me not to respond. Soon we heard a police siren. A police officer was trying to subdue Jenny, who then assaulted the officer. Jenny was taken away in handcuffs. Barbara remained on the phone and mentioned that a courier would deliver a restraining order by day's end. Jenny utilized her one phone call to reach out to her father, who refused assistance. He informed his wife that their rebellious daughter was jailed, suggesting she might want to bail her out. Tony declined to assist her in both the criminal trial and divorce proceedings. He expressed his deep disappointment with her, stating she was the first family member to ever let him down like this. Conversely, my mother took the divorce papers, forwarding them to her legal representative. Suggested by her lawyer, she underwent psychotherapy sessions. Later on, 3 more women, including Jenny, employed the same attorney and requested therapy as well. The judge mandated 12 weeks of counseling for all 4 couples. My father consented to the therapy only if my mother disclosed a list of the 4 men with whom she had admitted to engaging in intimate relationships, along with their identities, locations, timing, and the reasons that led her to breach her marriage commitments. The case was escalated to a judge, and her attorney argued against the requirement for such a detailed list, as her infidelity had already been acknowledged. It was now time to focus on healing. Barbara contended that my father would constantly ponder if the person he conversed with had dishonored his wife. He could never truly move past this uncertainty without knowing who, when, and if it was indeed 4 individuals involved. The judge concurred with this sentiment. My mother withdrew her proposition for therapy as these incidents were the most traumatic in her life, and she wished to avoid revisiting them. They consequently became the first couple to obtain a divorce. Tony filed a similar petition, and Jenny's mother passed on the list. In response, Barbara promptly served subpoenas upon the 4 men, urging them to secure legal representation. I followed suit by requesting the same from Jenny, which enraged her. She scribbled in large letters on the document, "What the hell, Jack?" apparently referring to a singular instance and one close encounter with him. However, she did not disclose his name, only knowing his first name initially. Barbara persisted relentlessly, much like a bloodhound. She summoned the hotel and restaurant to obtain credit card statements, ultimately locating him and serving him with legal documents. She suggested I file for divorce due to infidelity, a term I didn't understand, but she said might bring financial benefits. Jenny requested that I disclose all women, encounters, timelines, and locations where such events transpired since our marriage. Following her guidance, I filled out the form with a large VO and submitted it to Barbara. Matt and Tammy engaged in a similar strategy. Tammy argued that kissing did not constitute intimacy, so she listed 0 as well. However, Matt found himself in a predicament because the night after he discovered Tammy kissing another man, he became intoxicated and slept with someone. He couldn't recall the details of that evening, including her identity or appearance. All he was aware of was that she drove him home, and upon waking up, she was beside him in bed. Even so, he was uncertain if they had engaged in sexual activity. A hearing took place regarding the interpretation of intimate relationships. The process was prolonged due to various hindrances. Ultimately, after consultation, they concluded their actions were primarily retaliation for some past offense and decided to mend fences. Jenny's admirer was eventually located, and he attended the interrogation accompanied by his lawyer. I perused the interview transcript, and it left me distressed. He had encountered Jenny on multiple occasions at bachelorette gatherings. She was quite affable. They danced rather intimately. Jenny pressed herself against him repeatedly and caressed him. He requested her company at a hotel on several occasions, but she declined. During their last encounter at a bachelorette party, he accused her of flirting with him. This infuriated her, and she proposed a dinner date for the following Friday, followed by a hotel stay where she vowed to prove him wrong. They dined together, went to the Hilton Hotel, and engaged in sexual activities numerous times throughout that night and the subsequent morning. My therapy sessions were distressing. Jenny persistently urged me to disregard the matter. At times, the therapist appeared to align with Jenny, prompting my confiding in Barbara, who complained to the judge. A second hearing followed where the therapist was reprimanded by the judge. Ultimately, the psychologist concluded that our sessions had reached a standstill and saw no benefit in prolonging them. Our marriage ended, yet her departure preceded the finalization of our divorce by 9 months. The dissolution of Tony and Jane's union was both protracted and notorious. What started as testimony from 4 witnesses expanded to include testimony from 9 men and 2 women. The infidelities persisted over several years, with some men switching partners, including multiple couples and at least one threesome. Tony was summoned to the union headquarters on numerous occasions annually, while Jane occasionally hosted raucous sex parties. Occasionally, 1 or 2 individuals would share Jane's bed on other occasions. The most distressing aspect was her lack of discretion in letting Jenny know about it. Initially, she might not have comprehended its deviation from typical social gatherings. However, as she grew older, she came to recognize this. Her mother advised her that women could occasionally indulge. While Jenny may have found amusement, it led to the disintegration of 3 marriages, and I believe Matt narrowly salvaged his with Tammy. I consciously ceased interacting with Jenny. At times, Tammy would mention her in our presence, and I would respond indifferently, at times angrily, which displeased Matt. I cherished Matt, but when Tammy was agitated, I devised excuses. Ultimately, we sold the business for a meager sum to one of Tony's acquaintances. Jenny received a quarter. She wished to contest for more, but lacked the funds for legal representation. Matt and I resumed our previous actions post-business sale. Only the checks bore a different name.